Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Now, in CookieCast, it's the football podcast. The guys are here, they're going through all the games from last week and talking about any games that are left in the season to go through. Season's getting to a close at this point. Find out who's staying, who's going, what's happening. It's getting tense for certain teams, I'm reliably informed. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously, if you're into the football, someone is into the football, how about this? Send this podcast to a friend or family member and say, hey, check this out. You'll love it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, football podcast.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another week here on the CookieCast Podcast Network, and we're bringing to you the football podcast once again, ladies and gentlemen, and for the second week running, it's not just three of us here to talk football. That's correct. Fresh from the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, Max Hepworth's here to join us again. How are we this week, Max? Oh, there it is. There's the binoculars. He spied us from many a mile away.
I did not see that coming.
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I've been better, but obviously we'll get to that. So we have to start. Unfortunately, we're going to bookend the predictions from last week's podcast here in with the two worst possible games, unfortunately. And we have to start in the West Midlands, where it was Aston Villa taking on Nottingham Forest in the semi-final second leg of the Europa League. Do we want to just get through this in about 90 seconds and just move on?
Yeah, I mean, we started well. James McAtee played a really nice ball to Amari Hutchinson. He bent it round the post, and then that was it, really. Yeah. I think it was just unfortunate. I think it was just one step too far. Obviously, Villa seemed to have had like 3 or 4 weeks to prepare. Judging by their Premier League form, and then have decided to have another little rest the following game as well. So, but yeah, I mean, they came out. I think it was a combination of several things. I think they came out and were just like gangbusters. It was just like, it was insane how dominant they were. I think Forest stuck with what has worked for the past few weeks, but unfortunately, with the lack of other players the players to properly support it, it didn't work, and Villa just kind of took us apart. Well, it didn't take us apart, but just dominated the game so heavily. I think it got to half time and the possession was relatively equal, and you're like, it definitely didn't feel like that. It felt like at times Villa had 12 men on the pitch at least. And Forest was just chasing shadows. But yeah, so unfortunately, I mean, Buendia, who kind of is one of them players that you don't really hear that much about. I was kind of surprised at how good he was. Did he sign him from Norwich?
Yeah, I think it was. Like 40 million or something. They paid a decent whack for him when they got him. But I think he was Championship Player of the Season when Norwich got promoted, when they won the league like 4 or 5 years ago. And him getting sold was basically the catalyst to them having a terrible season, because he was basically everything good that they had went through him.
Yeah. So he started the route, really nice run into the box. He kind of managed to delay the cross to get all the Forest defenders to commit, and then slotted across, and Watkins knocked it in. Then the second goal, just early on in the second half, which really killed it, I think, was just stupid from Milenkovic. It's kind of almost like they were like, Dina gave us a really nice penalty last week. We better give it them back by pulling someone who didn't have the ball, was going away from goal potentially, and another Forest player was in the thing, but he just decided to pull his shirt. The player went down like a sack of shit, to be honest. But yeah, so then Buendia tucked away the penalty, nice penalty, and then it kind of got to the point where Forest were chasing the game, and at that point they'd kind of put loads of attackers on, and from then on, of course, everybody's favourite shitty little Scotsman turned up, and 2 good goals hit us on the break. Ortega couldn't do anything about them. First one was a left-handed one that he bent round him. Second one, he went the other side. So 4-0. Yeah. I think the thing that really pissed me off was Lee Hendry wandering around the ground crowing at Forest fans, and that was just like, yeah, you just beat a twat there, mate. Take your win, fuck off, and hopefully go back to get to Istanbul and get yourself some new teeth. But yeah, so shame it came to an end like that. Like I said, I think unfortunately, it was a bit of a match too far in. I think we had like 3 games in 7 days, or effectively 6 days, kind of including the Newcastle one coming up. And it just ended up being a bit of an anticlimax. It was, and I think might have said it to you guys, it was one last fuck you from Sean Dyche as well, because obviously players that we really could have done with, he left out of the squad for I don't really know what kind of thing. So yeah, disappointed.
Yeah,
but kind of it's well, obviously when we go back and look at the season predictions, it is a lot further than what I thought we'd get. So so take the money in the bank. Unfortunately, no champion can't go and get Champions League football, but it's a good showing.
Yes, just going back to the sort of the Lee Hendry thing. I would have thought I thought that like English football was, the idea was that we were kind of filled with like decent people who sort of win with dignity and win with like humility and stuff like that. Where's that just like disappeared to and stuff like that?
I would be like, I'll refer you to Lee Hendry, because that's what he's been for his career.
Yeah, good point. Well made. So predictions wise, everyone got points here because everyone had a variety of different scorers. So I'd gone for a 1-1 draw with Watkins and Jesus. Stuart gone for a 1-1 draw with Watkins and Jesus. Max had gone for a 1-1 draw with Watkins and Jesus. So basically, all 3 of us had the exact same prediction there. So I got the 1 point for the Watkins goal. Matt had gone for a 2-1 Nottingham Forest win, so gets the point for the result, and he'd also picked McGinn as one of his goal scorers. So yes, 2 points for Mr. Moore there. Just a point apiece for myself, Mr. Woodmansey, and Mr. Hepworth. Our second game of the week saw the beginning of the Sky Bet Championship playoffs, and it was Hull City versus Millwall, and 2 of our correspondents were live in person for this one. Not one for the purists at home watching on TV. Did it feel better in the stadium?
Personally, I didn't think it was a bad game, which probably Stuart might not agree with. I just thought it was your typical first leg of a playoff semi-final. It was, I think both teams wanted to win the game, but obviously, I think they were both playing to not lose the game. I think both sets of fans and both teams probably left that game at 0-0 thinking that's probably the best result we could have hoped for, really. I think a 0-0 draw suited Hull City. I think a draw suited Hull City, because I think if they'd have gone into the second leg 1-0 up, I think they'd have tried to defend the way through the second game, and I don't think it would have really worked. Alternatively, if we'd have gone in one goal down or a couple of goals down, we'd have had to have gone for it in that second leg. And I think Millwall would have just shut up shop and defended more resolutely than what we could have done. So, no, I thought it was a decent game. I thought it was just two teams feeling each other out. And yeah, I was quite happy to take the draw and going into the second leg, see what we could do in the second game. But yeah, I was quite happy.
It was hard to disagree though that it was pretty uneventful. Unless we should really have swapped the podcast around and covered this game on the Getting Over podcast, because Josh Coburn is a filthy little slag. He needs to go away.
Sorry, little?
Well,
it's huge.
The thing is, like, he obviously left Borough because they thought he couldn't play football to their standard, and I would fully agree. He doesn't play football. He likes to tickle defenders with his big meaty hands, and he needs to keep them to himself. But we did get a sellout crowd of over 24,600 there. The atmosphere was there, but yeah, just neither side could get the finishing touch on the pitch. Mo Balumi did hit the post inside the first 2 minutes. He picked the ball up on the left, turned one Millwall defender inside out twice before doing it to another, and then rather than laying the ball into the path of a completely unmarked Ollie McBurney, decided to absolutely mash it against the post to try and beat the keeper on the inside. It didn't happen. Gelhardt was clean through on 18 minutes, and just his studs let him down, I assume, or the pitch had been overwatered or whatever, and he ended up slipping on his backside. If he'd have been able to get a shot away, could have been a different result with that. But yeah, it was 0-0 at half time. On 68 minutes, Negley hit the post for Millwall. A long-range low strike, which Max's favourite player decided he was going to dive for about 10 minutes after it had gone past him. But Hull allowed him the space to get the shot away, really. And again, Millwall looked more dangerous whenever we sat off. There was no real... The only time they had a foothold in the game was when Hull decided to sit deep. And when we actually got man for man, they weren't really an issue. Millwall did think that they'd won the game when Leonard put the ball beyond Pandor in 84 minutes, but the ref had very, very quickly already blown for a foul on Hughes by Kramer. I know we kind of cover this every week with the old shirt pulling, and obviously it was mentioned already in Matt's game, but there are shirt pulls, and then there are basically horse collaring him. Like, he had hold of his shirt and dragged him to the floor by his collar. But yeah, the theme of the game was definitely keep your hands to yourself, you filthy, filthy pigs. But there is a second leg to come. And who knows, maybe we'll talk about that again. For me, again, it goes down to the refereeing, because he let too much go right from the beginning. I don't know what you thought to that, Max. He literally had a chance to call for a yellow card within the first 2 or 3 minutes of the game and bottled it. And from that point, it was just game on. It was just open season. The disallowed goal did cause a bit of aggravation in the stadium. Some seats were ripped out and thrown, which is the second time I've seen Millwall fans do that. And how many other sets of fans have I ever seen do that in all the time I've been going? That's right, you can count them on no fingers. It's just you. So congratulations, Millwall. You're winning that one 2-0. And that is the only 2-0 you're getting on this podcast. The leaving the stadium as well, because of them, became an issue. So they decided that in their infinite wisdom, and it was the right decision in some ways, obviously, to put an extra train on for the game. And this train needed to be made by the Millwall fans, otherwise they weren't getting home. So what the police decided to do was let everybody out of the ground at the same time, because that's going to end well. And then after the Hull fans had already started making their way up the usual walk back towards the station, basically hold the Hull City fans in place whilst approximately 2,500 Millwall morons were stood there swearing at children, trying not to fall down the bank drunk, and generally having a lovely time thinking they were the kings of the jungle. They brought with them some Met Police, and in terms of crowd control, I have met more highly performing lettuce, and yeah, it just was a really unsavoury end to the game when realistically, as Max very rightly pointed out, both teams, both sets of fans really should have probably been 0-0 wasn't a result anybody would have wanted, but everybody would have been happy with because you're halfway through the tie and everything is still very much to play for. You basically don't want to go into the second tie with it already done and dusted, and it wasn't, but yet they chose that moment to show themselves for what they are. And it's just a little bit of a disappointing end to the night for me, really.
Yeah, always a shame when it's sort of marred by stuff that takes place off the pitch. We might get to some of that later on as well.
Speaking of the pitch, it was the last game of Hull City's groundsman. Initially, it was meant to be the Norwich game, and he put a big post out on social media saying, like, "Thank you to everyone. Today is the last dance." Blah blah blah. Clearly, wasn't expecting Hull City to get into the playoffs, and then when we did get into the playoffs, he put another post out on the day of the game, saying, "Right, one final hurrah." Which I'm hoping with having a new groundsman, the pitch might actually be in decent condition because the pitch has been atrocious for a number of years.
I think that's
And our former groundsman is now the groundsman at North Ferriby, and North Ferriby have a fantastic pitch. So
I would suggest though that North Ferriby don't have to endure the egg chasers for one.
I was going to say that the egg chasing definitely doesn't do you any favours.
But also as well, the other thing that might do the ground some favour is that, again, in his wisdom, doing those evening with things, Ajun mentioning the fact that the Hull FC's contract with the stadium management company is coming up very shortly. Does anyone want to guess who's, maybe in charge of the SMC? So there's talk about kicking him out again, which comes around every 31st of February, but hopefully it'll come to fruition at some point.
Well, watch this space. You never know. You might get an update over the summer. Predictions wise, not a great deal of points obviously around here. No one gets any points for goal scorers because there weren't any. I'd gone for a 2-1 win for Hull. Max had also gone for a 2-1 win for Hull, so no points there. But Matt and Stu had both picked draws. Matt had gone 1-1, Stu had gone 2-2. So they both get a point there. So Matt increases his lead to 3. Stu moves on to 2. Myself and Max stay rooted on 1 point apiece. And the third game was the other semi-final in the Championship playoffs, and so my lot taking on Southampton. And
nothing
to say that
nothing happened.
Yeah, zero incident before the game, 0 incident during the game, 0 incident after the game. Absolutely nothing took place in the intervening days, prior to the game. Certainly not a man apparently acting upon his own volition, driving 6 hours from the south coast to the lovely, I was going to say Teesside, but it's not even Teesside, is it? It's like Herwood. It's closer to Darlington, the training ground. Caught spying on the Middlesbrough first team training session.
Allegedly at this stage, Paul. You should say.
Sorry, yes. Allegedly caught spying. I did enjoy the press conferences that Kim Hellberg's done, in which he categorically states that it's not allegedly because he saw him with his own 2 eyes, so he feels confident enough that he can say, no, that definitely took place. The cheating scum. The alleged cheating scum. I feel like I should add that. So the game already on the Saturday morning, this one already had a little bit of extra sort of extra spice added to it, and the Borough fans took it upon themselves to try and up the ante. So they'd arranged to be there from about 10 o'clock in the morning to welcome the players with a big sort of smoke and fanfare show, which was very nice. I was unable to get there that early, so I just had to sort of walk in through the aftermath of that. The game itself, for the first 45 minutes, there was only one team in it. As I don't have the stats to hand, because I've only got the stats for the game overall, but Southampton didn't have a shot, let alone on target. They didn't have a shot in the entirety of the first half. Stu's got his hand up.
I obviously was following along because weirdly Paul wasn't in his hometown whilst I was in Paul's hometown, as he had gone to the game, and I was checking along, and I believe that Sky Sports had Borough down as having 20 shots by half time.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think there was
quite impressive.
I think it was 3 that were on target, maybe even 2.
No, it was more. They had it down as 5, I believe, at the time.
Oh, on target.
Yeah.
There might have been a couple that were sort of like from distance that sort of got blocks, fairly sort of like far out. But I feel like when it comes to like clear cut chances, there's only really 2 in the first half that stuck out. The first of which was Morgan Whittaker managing to get in down the right hand side of the box, and he drilled the ball across. It evaded most of the people and came to Tommy Conway at the back stick. He could have taken it first time, but probably wouldn't have had the greatest shot on it. So it took a touch, and by the time he'd sort of settled himself to take the shot, James Bree had managed to get himself back into a good defensive shape and managed to block the ball on the line, send it away for a corner. From like that sort of passage of play, I think the ball ended up going out for a goal kick, and as they were doing all the way from like minute 1, and anytime they got a goal kick, the goalkeeper was trying to waste as much time as possible. So he'd take the ball, roll it to his centre half, who then replaced the ball in the 6-yard box, took the goal kick to the keeper, who then played it back to him, and then played it back to the keeper and played it long. It was incredibly frustrating to watch, and as per usual with the refereeing standard that we see in the Championship, absolutely nothing was done. The keeper managed to make it through this game without a yellow card, which is very impressive. And it was from the build-up play that Southampton had at the back. They put the ball long to Kyle Larin in the middle of the park. He was bullied off the ball. Sorry, this is 6 foot plus. Kyle Larin was bullied off the ball by the absolute man mountain that is Riley McGree, all 5'7" or whatever it is of Riley McGree that there is. He played the ball into Strelec, who in turn fed the ball into Conway. Conway took the ball for first time, and if it had taken just a shade off it, might have hit the inside of the post and gone in. Unfortunately, he caught it too full, hit the inside of the post and bounced straight back out. And I was sat right in line with it, and it was an absolute beauty. He got a really good connection on it, to be fair, and it was very unlucky that it's not nestled in the back of the net. But yeah, it did finish. It ended up 0-0 going into half time. Borough massively on top in the first half. And in the second half, they tried starting to be sort of on the front foot again, but by the 70th minute, most of the first team were knackered. You could just tell that Strelec couldn't even move. Basically, he was unable to run. Conway wasn't doing his usual sort of closing down as intently as he has done earlier in the game. And at that point, you could tell that Southampton was starting to get a bit more of a grip in the game, and it was them who had the better of the chances for the last 20 minutes. They had a good chance where Taylor Harwood-Bellis hit the bar from a corner, and then Samuel Edozie was released in behind on the right hand side and just managed to shade his effort just wide of the post. So it definitely felt like Borough were hanging on towards the end of the game, but they did manage to get the clean sheet. They did manage to keep it at 0-0. So as we were with the Hull Millwall game, very much all to play for come the second leg. In the post-match press conference, the Southampton manager had to field all sorts of questions about the alleged spying incident, and
I mean, to be fair,
failed to comment.
it wasn't all sorts of questions. It was the same question over and over again. He answered it the same way over and over again, and then walked out. Whilst, like I said, looking guilty as sin. Like I've never seen anybody look so shifty and guilty. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks.
It's not a great look when you would have thought that surely the press officer would have given him at least something to say as a statement, from rather than just keeping going back with I can't say anything at this particular time. Well, you can. You could give us some insight as to sort of your opinion on why it's not a big deal, or why you don't think you're in danger of breaching the rules or anything like that. Just give us anything rather than just, I can't say anything at the moment. Yeah, sorry.
Obviously, the problem is he's going to be like, well, I'm not going to incriminate myself. And you're like, yeah, the guy stood by a fence pretty much incriminates you. And I think there's like an NBA player a while back that I think he went to his press conference and was just like, I'm just here so I don't get fined. And that was his answer to every single question. And at first, the reporters got annoyed with it, and then then started laughing at it because they just thought it was funny. I just think if you're going to be like that, you might as well just say, listen, we're not going to answer questions today because this is the statement we made. We're not, just wasting everybody's time. And yeah, that's crap.
Yeah, not ideal. Obviously, more to come when we discuss the second leg. But as for the first leg, this is our first game where no one got any points, as no one had a draw on this one. Everyone had positive results one way or the other. I'd gone for a 3-1 Borough win. Stu had gone for a 1-0 Southampton win. Matt had gone for a 4-3 Borough win. And Max had gone for a 2-1 Southampton win. So no points across the board for anybody. Our fourth game took us to the City Ground, and it was Nottingham Forest versus Newcastle United. And didn't see an awful lot of this one, so I can't really comment on much of it. But it seemed like it was a bit of a nothing happening first half, and it was all sort of towards the end, like last 15 minutes, it sort of got a bit better.
Yeah, I listened to it on the radio, and basically the commentator and the pundit sounded furious that they'd been sent to the game. I think it was Clinton Morrison, and he was like, I think Clinton Morrison lives in Nottingham, but he was just like, oh man, can't believe I got stuck with this game. All the other games got loads of goals, and this one's been rubbish. There's been no chances or anything. Like, he was absolutely furious with it. I think the general kind of gist was it was a bit of a ender, even though Forest weren't safe at the time and weren't safe by the end of the game. It kind of had a little bit of an end of season kind of party to it. Obviously, the players that Forest couldn't play in midweek in the UEFA game could come in. So Luca Netz played left back, Taiwo Awoniyi started up front, but I just don't think there was many chances either way. There was a couple of chances per side in the first half. Second half, I think, started similarly, bit more intensity, but it kind of came a bit more into life, bit more to life when the substitutes came on. So Newcastle bought on, oh goodness me, forgot the name, Harvey Bond and Jacob Ramsey. That was the one, and they combined to score Newcastle's goal. Newcastle had a few chances. Bruno Guimaraes had a few efforts on goal, and Asula hit the bar. But yeah, so Jacob Ramsey played a really nice through ball. Harvey Barnes is either really strong or Morato needs to stop being such a wimp, because he just held him off with not much effort and stuck it in the back of the net. I think Sells came out a bit of quite a long way. I think he should have perhaps stayed on his line, possibly. When that went in, I was like, oh man, this is going to be another loss, because I should have looked at this before the pod last week. We haven't beaten Newcastle at home since we got back into the Premier League. We haven't drawn with Newcastle at home. We have lost 5 times to Newcastle at the City Ground until in the last 5 meetings. Obviously, this one, as we'll find out in a minute. So it looked like the game was kind of going to drift out to Forest losing and then sitting, kind of waiting to see what happened with West Ham and the Spuds. But a couple of minutes behind, so then Forest made their own changes, brought McAtee on, brought Lorenzo Luca on. And Lorenzo Luca turned the game around. No, he didn't. Elliot Anderson, who obviously, of course, it's like Forest bingo now to talk about how much Elliot Anderson has proved and how he's the best player at Forest, but also played a really nice 1-2 with James McAtee, kind of played it into the box. McAtee turned and like as if he just knew he was there, slotted him in, really tight angle, stuck it past Nick Pope. And then just as he was about to celebrate, seemed to get a really bad case of cramp. Like just falls to the ground. It's like, really nice finish. Obviously against his boyhood club, also against the club that all of his family support. So not only has he scored against Sunderland in the past few weeks, he's also scored against Newcastle, which makes it all good. Forest get a point. Which was we weren't safe. But however, later that day, Arsenal beat West Ham, and that means Forest are safe in the Premier League for the 5th season on the trot. Obviously, even if that goal would have counted, that was the Wilson disallowed goal from the completely legitimate foul on the keeper. I don't know why there's been any debate about this. Like, he had hold of his arms. Like, it was a penalty. But even if they would have got that, Forest would have been effectively safe because our goal difference is something like 17 better than theirs. So, safe another season. 2 games to relax.
Lovely jubbly. Can start to see some players for next season, potentially. So, prediction-wise, sadly, it's only Max that doesn't get points from this one. Has he gone for a 3-1 Forest win? Wood, Awonyi, Gibbs White and Willock as his 4 goal scorers, so no points there, sadly. Stuart gone for a 2-1 home win, but did have Anderson as one of his goal scorers, so does get a bonus point there. Myself and Mr. Moore, however, had gone for a 2-2 draw apiece. I'd gone for Wood and McAtee as my Forest goal scorers, Osula and Barnes as my Newcastle goal scorers, so I get a point for the Barnes goal and a point for the draw. Matt had Wood and Anderson, and then Elanga and Osula as his 2 goal scorers, so does also get a point for the result and a point for the Anderson goal. So that means I move on to 3 points. Stu moves on to 3 points. Matt extends his lead even further onto 5 points. Matt's still stuck on the 1. So we've got 2 games left to go from this week, but we will take a very short break and come straight back at you with the second leg of Millwall versus Hull City in a second. Don't go anywhere. Just like that. The break is over and we continue our roundup. And as we said, we need to go and just finish off those pesky playoff games. The first of which took place at the Den, where Millwall were taking on Hull City. So obviously 0-0 from the first leg. Any positive result for either side takes them to Wembley. And dare I suggest we've got 2 rather happy Hull City supporters. But I'll let them explain why.
Well, it was a very different game to the first leg. It was definitely a lot more open. Hull came flying out. Over 70% possession. God, that's hard to say then, I thought. In the first 15 minutes of the game. But annoyingly, the first big chance fell to Millwall on 17 minutes. A ball to the back post, over from the right, was headed across the 6-yard box. Panda came out, did absolutely nothing. Flapped at it as Coburn resumed his shithousery role, with the ball sent goalward. However, Hull City team workhorse Kyle Joseph on the line to clear the ball away. Just a minute later, Pando was brought into action again, this time with a solid save from Aziz. And then finally, after all the early pressure, Patterson's turn to make a save came on 35 minutes from an Ollie McBurney header inside the 6-yard box. Disappointingly, just before half-time, Kyle Joseph was forced off with an injury from an absolutely ridiculous tackle from behind. This really pissed me off, quite honestly, watching this back as they played it over and over, as every single commentator in the land was like, oh, he's played the ball. He's definitely played the ball. Yes, he played the ball, but it was my understanding that the referee can also blow for a foul when it's just generally dangerous play, which I would suggest flying through somebody from behind and scissoring their ankle. Whether they meant to do it or not, it's still dangerous. He could have stopped himself had he not gone in flying in like an absolute moron. But turns out, wasn't even a foul. Kyle Joseph finished his evening by being subbed off. Mo Balumi got brought on. And Kyle Joseph did manage to sit on the bench for the second half wearing a full protective boot. Fantastic. So it was 0-0 at half time. And then once again, much like the first half had started, Hull came out firing in the second half. 47 minutes, there was a ball in low from the right-hand side from Slater. McBurney connected at close range, but Kramer was just sort of in the way. I don't think he really knew much about it. It was more sort of good positioning than any kind of reaction. But the deadlock was finally broken on 63 minutes. Quick passes in midfield for Slater to Crooks, out wide right to Balumi, and Balumi burst into the right-hand side of the box. Alfie Doughty, possibly one of the worst footballers I've ever seen live in person, sat off. So Mohamed saw his chance, saw the gap, and he curled a shot towards the far post with the ball nicking in just off the inside of the post. The keeper had absolutely no chance. It was a really lovely finish. And Hull were 1-0 up, and it was in front of the away support as well. Millwall, I would suggest, were rattled at this point. 70 minutes in, Sloppy playing out from the back, saw Balumi collect a loose pass. He slipped it into Slater, who was clean through on goal, and he gave the fans based in the upper away stand a nice little present to hang on to, as the ball didn't sail into the net, but paid them a visit instead. But then on 78 minutes, Hull sealed the tie and their place in the final at Wembley. Balumi again, charging down the right, ball into the box, found Gelhardt unmarked, who drilled a low shot across Patterson to the bottom right. Clearly had too much power on it, or the keeper was just shit, you decide. But the ball did squirm in. Joffrey as well, he'd only been on the pitch a few minutes, and both goals were scored by the two substitutes. So you can't argue with the manager's tactics, although the first one was kind of enforced. Actually, I should have mentioned this. Did you see this, Max? They made a real big song and dance about, because of the injury, Balumi was like taking ages to put his boots and his shirt and his like hair curlers in and all the rest of it. And they literally kept flashing up Sergei on the pitch side, being like, and then didn't look anything like that when he scored that goal, did he?
No. Yeah, when they were forced into the change, I was messaging my cousin who I sit next to at City the exact words of, I think it's too early for Balumi. And I had quite a lot of egg on my face when he did what he did. Yeah, I found it funny. Well, I found it, to be honest, I found it quite funny throughout the entire playoffs. Sorry, because I didn't even realise Hull City were in the playoffs. based on any form of media coverage outside of Hull. I know it's influenced obviously by other things, but Hull City don't get a single mention. The lazy, anytime Hull City did get a mention, it was, well, Millwall are obviously going to win because Millwall finished third and Hull City finished sixth. Forgot the fact that we battered them at their ground and we were the better team at our ground, I thought, during the league stage, league phase. I thought we were the better team, but they were just more clinical. And as well, how animated their bench were getting after Joe Geldart injured Kramer. Kramer was given it the yellow card thing, which he should have been booked for, but refs don't always enforce that rule. Which I just found it funny because, was it Ballo that took out Carl Joseph and everything was just, oh, it's absolutely fine, don't worry about it. But yeah, when Joe Geldart leaves a foot in on Kramer, you'd think, it shot him or something, the way that they were all kicking off on the bench and stuff. I found it laughable, to be honest.
Well,
bloody glad.
In terms of like the other subs in the game as well, I think sometimes Jakirovic makes an odd one. By which I mean he brings Kieran Dowell on. This time he decided to leave him on the bench. Lundstrom has kind of late been falling into that bracket of, oh shit, which one's turning up today? But he did his job, saw out the game. Nothing else really happened. The only other thing of note was a good period of passing. Was really irritating the Millwall fans, particularly as all of the Hull City fans were giving it the olays. And yeah, finished Millwall 0, Hull City 2. The Tigers headed to Wembley 90 minutes from the Premier League.
All done without paying a single penny for any additions to the playing staff this season as well, no less.
And
Yes,
as well, and we didn't have to spy on anybody's training ground.
Allegedly.
That we were caught doing.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Jakirovic as the manager of the season wasn't discussed more at the sort of the end of the I say end of season, the EFL awards is a bit of a joke, really, because to say that Hull were goal difference away from playing League One football this season, and they're now, like you say, 90 minutes away from being a Premier League side next season, shows just what a great job that man's done. So yes, Hull 2, Millwall 0. Predictions wise, not a great deal of points. I'd gone for a 2-1 Millwall win with Hull to win on penalties. Crooks was my goal scorer for Hull, so no points for me. Stuart gone for a 2-0 win with Ivanovic and Ballo to score for Millwall. No points for him. Max had gone for a 1-1 draw with Langstaff and Crooks, so no points for him. But Matt had gone for a 1-0 Hull away win, so gets a bonus point. Sorry, gets a point for the result. And he'd also picked Balumi as his goal scorer, so he bags a bonus point to take 2 points. And basically, he's romping away with it at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. He's got 7 points from 5 games. The closest people to him is myself and Mr. Woodmansey on 3. Max still just on the 1 solitary point, sadly. Which takes us to the last game of the week. Takes us down to the South Coast. Takes us to Southampton versus Middlesbrough. And all of the pre-match shenanigans with the alleged spying and whatnot that had taken place, had sort of already meant that this one was going to be ill-tempered and whatnot, regardless of what went on the pitch. But from a Middlesbrough perspective, they did what they normally do, and they started off on the front foot and deservedly took the lead 5 minutes in. Riley McGree on the end of a crossing from the right-hand side. Well, I say a crossing. It was a a ball played in by Callum Britton to the edge of the box, and Riley McGree was able just to sort of sweep it home into the far corner of the keeper's net to make it 1-0 and set Middlesbrough up very nicely to sort of go on and take the game to Southampton and really press home their advantage. In differing with usual games involving Borough, when they scored, they didn't actually sit back on this one. They did actually take the game to them and then try to sort of increase their lead. But sadly, any of the chances they had weren't really like that close to drawing the keeper into a save or anything like that. And as the game went on, obviously Southampton got back into the game more, and actually were able to equalise in the first minute of injury time at the end of the first half. A ball played into the back post had an effort that was straight at Sol Bryn. He was able to palm it up into the air, and the ball eventually made its way to Ross Stuart, who found himself, I say unmarked in the 6-yard box to leap high into the air and head over the line to make it 1-1 on the evening. The reason why he was unmarked is because he'd basically just thrown Aidan Morris to the ground in the melee to get himself free. Maybe if VAR was in place, this goal wouldn't have stood. There was question marks over a foul on Dale Fry in the 6-yard box as well. But I think it's just one of those ones where there's an awful lot going on in the box. It would have been very hard for the referee to have seen it in real time. So the goal stood, and it was 1-1 at half time. To be fair and to give a bit of an unbiased opinion, there were 2 instances in the first half where Borough probably would have found themselves on the wrong end of a decision if they had VAR been there. One of the Middlesbrough players went in a bit late and a bit high on one of the Southampton guys. I think it was Riley McGree. He got a yellow card. If VAR had a look at it, it was almost certainly a straight red. And I think there was a penalty that they could have given away as well. I think there was a late challenge in the box. Potentially would have been given as a penalty. But in turn, there was also an incident in the first half where Strelic was taken down in the box and nothing was given. So again, we'll even it up a couple of piece there. So into the second half, and the game started to get a little bit tetchy. There was a bit of a stoppage in play at one point as an allegation had been made by Luke Ayling that something discriminatory had been said to him by Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Apparently, it was something to do with him mocking his speech impediment.
Yeah.
Something like that. It has since come out that they've spoken to the ref after the game, and Ayling's happy that it was dealt with sort of at the time. He doesn't want to take any further, so that's basically like a non-incident and stuff now.
It is, but I mean, really, to me that's Ayling being sort of the bigger man all round there, because if he really wanted to, he could force it home because of everything else that's going on around. But he's sort of probably experienced enough to realise that, like, that one incident is personal to him, whereas the other stuff, Southampton are going to blow themselves up with the stuff that's going on currently without like him doing that as well, and he can just sit back and let other people sort of shoot themselves in the foot, sort of thing.
Yeah, true. So just and again, just the game continued on, and there was chances for both teams. Not so much after the 68th minute, however, for Borough, as from the 68th minute on, they had one shot in the game. Not the best, not the greatest look. I think at this point it was the same as for the first 70 minutes in. The main lads in the first team absolutely knackered. They've done their pressing. They've tried to sort of hurry the ball and so that. They're just running on empty at this point. So definitely had the feel that they were hanging on towards the end of the game. Obviously, 90 minutes comes, full time whistle is blown, so we end up with the extra time. Couple of changes are made here and there to try and freshen it up. and into the second half of of extra time. 5 minutes to go before the end, and Southampton have the ball out on the right hand side. Shea Charles switches it back onto his left hand side and just sort of whips a hopeful ball into the box. Doesn't take a flick off anybody. Dale Fry very, very close to getting a head onto it. At the time, looked as if he'd left it, as he probably thought that it was going through to the keeper. Charles had put just enough whip on it where it sort of comes round and just sneaks inside Solbrin's far post. Heartbreaking, probably the understatement of the day. But yeah, 5 minutes to go. Borough have no real chance of getting back into it. No real sort of game changers left on the pitch. Obviously, Hayden Hackney still unable to make an appearance in this one. Hellberg had said in his press conference that he would be fit to play in the final if Borough had gotten there. But unfortunately, as at time of recording, that doesn't appear to be the case, as Middlesbrough lost this one 2-1. And as for now, it will be Southampton taking on Hull in the playoff final on the 23rd of May. Very disappointing, obviously, from a Borough perspective. However, to give the Southampton players their due, they were the better team on the night, probably the better team over the course of the two legs. Certainly on pitch, they've earned the right to go to the playoff final. The club as a whole, not so much.
I said this to you before. I disagree with that completely. They were essentially given the answers to the test before they took it, so they're going to be better. Like, I know they've still got to execute it, and that's fine. But I disagree. I don't think you can measure them equally against your side because the scales were tipped their way already. I don't think it's a fair assessment. I think if they're going to cheat, just for want of a more eloquent expression, fuck them. Like, they deserve the book thrown at them now. I appreciate it's not the players' fault because they're not going to have known anything about it. But after it had happened, they're not going to be like, well, how have they got this information? Why are you showing me a video of Luke Ayling mooning Hayden Hackney in training? But like, whatever it might be, like, they're not guilty because they didn't go and do the spying themselves, but they're sort of complicit in the whole process by proxy. So
I just think it's like, I think I saw something earlier as well. Oh, it's not the fans' fault. Oh, but did all the fans turn up in camouflage? Did they all turn up with binoculars? Did they all turn up taking the piss? And you can all say, oh, it's banter, it's football banter. I'd be embarrassed if my club did that. Like, I'd just be like, no, like, I wouldn't turn up making a joke of it because you cheated. And like we said about it before, allegedly or whatever it is. I mean, allegedly is absolute horseshit. We know exactly. Everybody knows exactly what they did, and and we said this before. If they're doing it now,
sorry, just cancel my orders for the binoculars for Wembley. Just.
But if they've done it now, who's to say they haven't done it before? And it's not. You can't just, oh yeah, it's just a one-off incident that a rogue person who's been employed by the club ever since Eckhart turned up has now decided that he's going to go and visit different training ground, visit just Middlesbrough's training ground, nobody else's training. He's definitely never done that before. You couldn't possibly have done that before. So it would not have crossed his mind to do it. It just became the first thing that he was going to do. He was scoping out the golf club. He just, really wanted to play like a nice 18 holes or something. He wanted to, he was out there doing someone's, your distance chart kind of thing to make sure that, Harwood Bellis knew which one, whether he's going to use his 7-iron or 8-iron to get it into the fifth hole. Like, Jesus Christ. I think they just think we all came down, we were born yesterday, came down in the last shower. It's just ridiculous.
hasn't there been rumblings earlier today of potentially other reportings of this not being?
Yeah. So there's been reports out that apparently Middlesbrough are in um they've got knowledge, or they have like information that's been provided to them to indicate that it's occurred at other teams. Like they've reported that there's been, you know, stuff that's happened at their training grounds that's like that would sort of like fall into the same category and stuff like that. I mean, it's a bit strange that they wouldn't have said anything before now. But obviously, if you just don't, if you're not really questioning it at the time, I suppose you don't really know what you're looking for, do you? But yeah, it all just sort of smacks of a bit of like just it goes back to the thing I was saying with the Lee Hendry thing, like, you know, just like by all means celebrate that your team's won and stuff like that, but there's a way to celebrate and there's a way to conduct yourself and stuff like that. When it happened, the only time obviously it's happened before is when it was the Leeds Derby situation, obviously where Derby had reported that someone from Leeds was caught filming their training session and spying on their training session. That was in the regular season. That wasn't in the playoffs, but obviously it came to a head because Leeds ended up playing Derby in the playoffs, and in that sort of regard, it was. I mean, far be it for me to say that the good guys prospered in that Derby came out as the winners of the whole situation. Because let's be honest,
Oh,
there isn't a moment in this lifetime that we're ever going to say that Derby were the good guys.
I when you started
So
off by saying that the best thing had happened at the end, like I thought you meant like the stadium had burnt down and I'd forgotten about it.
Well, when you look into it, obviously rules 3 and 4 is like really wishy-washy, kind of within the kind of your gentleman's agreement kind of thing. But after that, then they literally wrote a law 127 of you can't be near another club's training ground 72 hours before the game. Like and Leeds got fined £200,000, and like yeah, it's just
But
it's shocking.
where do you get off with it though? Because if it's then discovered that actually yes they have done this throughout the season, like not only now have Middlesbrough got the case against them for the playoffs element, but what happens if it turns out that their spying inadvertently affected a Wrexham result, a Derby result? Like they could have then been in the playoffs. Hull wouldn't have necessarily have played Millwall. Hull might not even have been in the play, or however that would work out.
And
It
that's it. Everybody's
throws the
got it.
whole
The
league into
butterfly effect,
disrepute.
isn't it?
it's a
Millwall.
very murky situation, and there's not going to be a swift and satisfactory outcome. I don't know. Like obviously the thing that people are saying at the moment is, oh well, they'll just be the harshest punishment they can do is that they'll be expelled from the playoffs and they'll just put Borough into the final anyway. If that is the case and that's what happens, I don't want that. I don't want that to be the case. I don't want Borough to get to the playoff final because of a technicality or something like that. I wanted them to get there because they earned it on the pitch. And then obviously that opens up the can of worms of if they do get reinstated and it's then Middlesbrough versus Hull and Borough do go on to win the game, are Hull perfectly justified to have a gripe there that they weren't supposed to be playing Middlesbrough, and that opens up another can of worms there where, oh well, we'd set up to play Southampton, so we weren't given enough time to prepare correctly and adequately and stuff like that.
But
It's just all shit. What the
that
better phrase?
I think that Hull would have on the basis of right now, as we record this podcast, obviously not as in the very second they'll be doing the training, but in the stuff that's coming afterwards, obviously Southampton know they will be playing Hull if they're permitted to. If Middlesbrough got reinstated, and Hellberg has said, hasn't he, that they will keep training until it's resolved, Middlesbrough know that if they get reinstated, they're playing Hull. Well, who do Hull prepare for then?
Exactly. It's just yeah. Like
Maybe they
if they
should
do
send
decide,
up somebody to both training grounds to find out.
if they do decide to remove them from the competition, it should just be that. It should just be that. Fair enough on the pitch. they were better than Middlesbrough over 2 legs, they earned the right to go to the playoff final. But if it's proven that like they're guilty of this spying stuff and that it is against the rules as it's been outlined, and they want to put down the harshest possible punishment, yeah, kick them out, remove them from the competition. Don't replace them with another team. Just by rights, just give Hull the walkover and have them be promoted.
I don't want to be cynical, but they're not going to do that because it's one of the biggest games, like definitely one of the biggest games in this country. It's probably one of the biggest games in the world, and it's TV, isn't it? So, like, how much money are they making?
Well,
TV
we'll put it this way.
as well.
Back in the day when we went the first time around and there was that Dean Windass goal, it was billed then as the £100 million game. I'm pretty sure by the time the second one came around, when Diami scored that screamer against Wednesday, I think it had got up to nearly 165, 170 million at that point. And I think there was 8 years between the two.
Well, it's over 200 million now.
Oh.
They think that it's worth sort of being promoted to the Premier League now. So, I mean, yeah, it's. I just keep coming back to it, but it's murky in it. It's just horribly sort of.
But genuinely, like they really. It's where do they stop with it? Because they need to make an example. If it's all proven to be true, and by the evidence that's been coming out just in a matter of hours, it's pretty damning already. So if they're in that sticky position of, if it's true, which it kind of looks like it's heading that way, they need to make a decision for one, and they need to make it quickly. It's normally a 14-day turnaround on the panel that are set to decide it. Well, the playoffs will have already been and gone by that point, so they need to make the decision more quickly. My gut feeling is that if they've cheated their entire way through the campaign, then all of the fixtures that they've played in this season should be reverted to a 3-0 opposition win, and they should be relegated as a minimum. If it's found that the guy who, I know that's, and I appreciate it's very extreme and very, very harsh, but nobody's ever going to do it again. And more than anything, what I think will happen is that I think it will be left alone because the EFL are spineless motherfuckers. And I think the second part is that it'll come out that it is to do with the manager. And do you know what? Even if it's not, because of his actions so far in the press conferences, I feel like his own club will throw him under the bus, and he will lose his job to save face for the rest of the outfit. That is what will happen.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong. Anyway, we could literally, I don't mean this as a hyperbolic statement, we could literally carry on with this conversation for about the next 2 to 3 hours, I dare say.
Podcast.
But I'll cut us off there, and we'll go through the prediction results. So, Stu was the only one who didn't get points in this one. He'd gone for a 1-1 draw with Archer and Whittaker to score the goals. Everyone else did get points. Max had gone for a 3-3 draw and had Odozie, Larin, Stuart, Strelec, Whittaker, and Hackney as his goal scorers. So gets a bonus point for the Stuart goal. Matt had gone for a 3-2 Southampton win. So gets a point for the fact that Southampton won the game, and also had Stuart as one of his goal scorers. I had also gone for a Southampton win, and I had also gone 3-2. But I didn't pick any of the goal scorers, so just the one bonus point to me, which means after those 6 games, Max did finish on 2 points for the week. Stu, 3 points for the week. I finished on 4 points for the week, but winning handsomely with 9 points from those 6 games. Well done to Mr. Matthew Moore. Well done to you, sir. Not as many games to predict for the next coming weeks, and for this week in total, it is just 1 game, as it is just Nottingham Forest have a game against Manchester United in the Premier League. So it shouldn't take us too long to rattle through these predictions. It's obviously Matt's team, so he will give the prediction last. I've gone for a 2-2 draw here. I've gone for Casemiro and Amad Diallo to score for Man United, and then Wood and Dominguez to score for Forest. Stu, what have you got down for Manchester United versus Nottingham Forest?
Also a draw, but I've got 1-1. I've got Bruno Fernandes for Manchester United and Awoniyi for Forest.
Lovely jubbly. Max?
2-0 to Manchester United, Fernandes and Mbuemo.
Fernandes and Mbuemo. Go then, Matt. I'm assuming you're off, clearly, obviously, because it's at Old Trafford.
We'll go in.
Oh, yeah, obviously, clearly.
I mean, to be fair, the 30 quid for all Premier League away for tickets is great. I have gone for a 2-1 Manchester United win. We've won the last 2 times we've gone to Old Trafford, but it was the first time in like 30 odd years since we had done that. And I feel like with the injuries, with kind of a bit of a beach kind of feel to it. Obviously, it's their last game of the season. They do all that talking on the pitch with the microphone shite that they always do each year. Obviously, I've gone for Fernandes and Sesko to score for Man United, and I've gone for Awoniyi to score for Forest.
Lovely jubbly. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this week's podcast. It's obviously disappointment for me, disappointment for Mr. Moore. We didn't get to our finals, but congratulations to Max and Stuart as their teams very much did. So yes, very well done, boys. I hope you'll be happy and getting your tickets sorted as we speak, or when they become available. Obviously,
Well,
are you both planning to go to the game?
Yes.
Yes.
The other thing as well, off the back of that bunch of alleged cheating bastards, is that the ticket information was supposed to be out before we started recording this podcast. At time of recording, it is absolutely not out because the kickoff time hasn't even been decided yet. The only plus side is that as pass holders, we will get priority on the tickets. So I don't think there's a danger of us not getting any, which is fine. And as such, I have already booked a hotel for the Friday night before. So, yeah, go in.
Lovely jubbly. Max, same for you?
I'm going. I won't be staying over the night before. But no, yeah, I'll be there.
Lovely jubbly. I'd love to say that I would also be there, but yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
You never know.
Sadly,
it might still happen.
Never know. You never know. But like I said, I don't really want to get there from pity. I want to get there through merit and stuff like that. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to the end of another week here on the CookieCast Podcast Network's football podcast. Thank you as always to the 3 gentlemen that have joined me this evening, and we will see you in a week's time to discuss Manchester United versus Nottingham Forest and look ahead to the final week of the season and the playoff final, be it who Hull play against, if anybody. Join us again next week. Tatty bye from us, and we'll see you in a week's time. Tatty bye for now.
So there we go, watch things up. Another one done, another one gone. What do we reckon's going to happen? What do we think the end of the season's going to look like? Drop us a line, let us know what you think's going to happen, tell us who you're rooting for, all of that good stuff. Also, while you're there, like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we have social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.